I need you to listen to me very carefully, because this is the first time I've ever been afraid of a patient. And not because he hurt me, but because he almost convinced me to love him. I always say that nurses learn to read people before they speak. We feel the room before we walk in. We know who's hurting, who's angry, who's pretending, who's broken. But with him, I was wrong. Very wrong. His name was Daniel. Room 314. Right at the end of the hallway where the evening lights always seem dimmer, like the shadows settle thicker there. He was admitted for what the hospital listed as recurrent fainting episodes and psychosomatic dizziness, which is medical language for we don't know what's wrong, but it might be emotional. When I first walked into his room, he was sitting up in bed, hands neatly folded, eyes calm. Calm in a way that didn't match the patient role at all. Most patients either carry fear, pain, confusion, something. But Daniel looked aware. Present. As if he had already studied every detail of the room before I arrived. "Good evening," I said, smiling, checking the monitors out of habit. "I'm Nurse Eleanor. I'll be taking care of you tonight." He didn't look at the machines. He looked directly at me. "Eleanor," he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the name. "That fits you." Most people say my name casually, like any other. But the way he said it, like he already knew me, caught something in my chest. I let it go. We're trained not to read into things. But that was the first moment. The first thread. Over the next 3 nights, Daniel wasn't like any other patient I'd cared for. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for pain meds or sleep aids. He never pressed the call button unless absolutely needed. Instead, he talked. Not the in one ear out the other small talk patients sometimes use to hide fear. But intentional conversation. "You look tired, Eleanor," he said one evening as I checked his foresight. "Do you ever rest? I feel like you carry more than you show." It startled me. Because he was right. I had worked a double shift. My back was throbbing, my eyelids heavy. But I hadn't said a word. Nurses don't get to be tired. We just keep going. "How did you know?" I asked before I could stop myself. He gave a soft smile. "You take care of everyone. But who takes care of you?" My heart gave the tiniest ache. "The kind you don't admit to." I remember laughing it off. I remember changing the subject. But inside, something had opened. A door I should have kept locked. The hospital is its own world at night. Hallways go quiet. Machines hum in patterns. Your thoughts get louder. I found myself lingering in room 314 longer than I needed to. Just a few extra seconds. Just one more question. Just one more look. He told me things that sounded like secrets. How he felt invisible in the world. How he was tired of being alone. How the world felt too heavy to carry. And I recognized that weight. Because I carried it too. That's the danger. Caregivers aren't chosen because they're strong. We're chosen because we feel deeply. Maybe too deeply. One night, around 3 a.m., I came back to check vitals. He was awake. Not sleeping. Just waiting. Couldn't sleep? I whispered. He shook his head slowly. Then he said something I never expected. "Stay with me. Just for a moment. Please. I don't want to feel alone tonight." Something in his voice made my chest pull tight. Not desperate. Not manipulative. Soft. Almost childlike. I shouldn't have. But I sat beside him. Not close. Just near. He didn't speak at first. Just breathed. Then, quietly. "Do you ever feel like everyone needs something from you, but no one ever just sees you?" My throat tightened. Because yes. Yes, I did. "You see everyone," he continued. "But you're invisible to them." I swallowed hard, heat pressing behind my eyes. He reached out, slow enough that I could have moved if I wanted to. And gently touched the back of my hand. Not grabbing. Not holding. Just resting. A touch that said, "I get you. I see you. You matter." It was the kind of touch I hadn't felt in years. And that was the moment my guard began to slip. The following day, another nurse pulled me aside. "Be careful with room 314, she said quietly. "He gets attached. Fast. You're not the first nurse he's done this with." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "He knows exactly what to say," she continued. "He makes you feel special. Seen. Needed. But it's not real. It never is." I didn't want to believe her. I didn't believe her. Not then. Because I had convinced myself. Daniel was different. But when I walked back into his room that night, he smiled the same soft, knowing smile. Like he already knew I'd defend him. Like he was waiting for me to choose him. And I realized something. He wasn't just observing me. He was studying me. Every expression. Every silence. Every vulnerability. And he was patient. So painfully patient. Like a fisherman holding a line. And waiting for the moment to pull. But the moment I knew something was wrong. Truly wrong. Was when he said this. "You always come back to me. Even when you don't realize it." I knew you would. And the way he said it. Not hopeful. Confident. Certain. Like he already owned a piece of me. Like he believed it. Like he believed I was his. My pulse picked up. Something cold slid under my skin. Because that wasn't vulnerability anymore. That was possession. And I wasn't sure when the shift happened. Or how. Or why it didn't scare me sooner. But here's where I leave you with the first loop. I didn't walk away. I should have. I know that now. But that night I stayed. Not because he needed me. But because, without realizing it, I needed him. Or at least, I needed what he made me feel. And that was only the beginning. I didn't sleep after that shift. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, the dim morning light creeping across the walls. My mind kept replaying his voice, that soft certainty. "You always come back to me." It should have felt unsettling. But instead, it felt like gravity. Like something pulling me back no matter how much I tried to reason my way out of it. I told myself it was empathy. I told myself I was just being a good nurse. I told myself I was just being human. But the truth was much simpler. Daniel made me feel seen. And I didn't realize how badly I needed that. When I walked into the hospital that night, I pretended everything was normal. I went through my charting, got report, checked medication schedules. But my awareness kept drifting toward the hallway, toward room 314. It's strange how a building full of people can feel like it narrows down to just one. By the time I reached his door, my heart was already beating faster. I opened it slowly. He was awake. Sitting up. Waiting. Like always. His eyes met mine immediately. Not with desperation. Not with pleading. With recognition. Like he knew I'd return. Like he never doubted it. Eleanor. Just my name. But it sounded like a greeting he had prepared just for me. "Long night?" he asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, leaning in to check his vitals, something to do with my hands. Something that would keep me grounded. His numbers were normal. His breathing steady. His muscles relaxed. And that was the thing. His body didn't look like someone who was sick. Not at all. "Did you sleep?" I asked, knowing the answer before the words left my tongue. He gave a quiet laugh. One of those soft, half-breath laughs that feels like confession. "I tried," he said. But something was missing. I swallowed. Because I knew what he was implying. And I didn't stop him. Not even in my mind. We talked again. More than was appropriate. More than was safe. He asked about my childhood. Not in broad surface-level ways, but directly. What was the first moment you realized you were alone, he asked. My breath caught. Because that wasn't a question. It was a wound. I told him about my mother leaving when I was young. About my father working nights. About teaching myself how to make dinner at 10 years old because no one else was there. I hadn't said those things out loud in years. Maybe ever. Not like that. And the way he listened. It was like the world stopped. Like every sound fell away. Like I was the only person alive. There's a danger in being fully seen. Because once someone sees you, they can shape you. At 2:27 a.m., he said something that shifted everything. You don't have to be strong with me. My heart cracked. Not broken. Just opened. He reached out again, slow, soft, and sure, and his fingers brushed mine. And I didn't pull away. That was the line. The one we all know exists. The one I crossed without realizing until I was already on the other side. 2 hours later, when I stepped out of the room to refill his water, I ran into another nurse, Maya. Someone I trusted. Someone I had cried with in the staff bathroom twice this year. Someone who saw more than she ever said. You were in there a long time, she said softly. Not judgment. Concern. I tried to respond casually. He just can't sleep. I was talking with him. Maya didn't look convinced. Eleanor, he watches you. I've seen it. He studies the way you move, the way you speak. It's not normal patient behavior. I felt heat rise in my chest. He's lonely, I said. He doesn't have anybody. She held my gaze. And that's exactly how men like him get in. The words hit harder than I expected. Men like him. I didn't want to ask. But I had to. Has he done this before? Maya exhaled slowly. Yes. With 2 nurses that I know of. Maybe more. He makes you feel special. Necessary. He makes you feel like you're the only thing keeping him alive. And by the time you realize it, he has a hold on you. I felt something collapse inside me. Not disbelief. Recognition. Because part of me had known. From the beginning. I didn't answer her. I couldn't. Instead, I went back to the medication room, leaned against the counter, closed my eyes, and took a slow breath. I needed distance. Space. Control. So I told myself. Tonight, I won't go back into room 314 unless necessary. I'll keep my distance. I will be professional. But when I stepped out into the hallway, Daniel was standing there. Not in bed. Not resting. Standing. The moment our eyes met, something flickered across his face. Relief. But also possession. You left, he said softly. Like it hurt him. Like it meant something. I felt myself stiffen. You need to be in bed, Daniel. It's not safe to be up without assistance. He stepped closer. Not aggressively. But deliberately. I just didn't want you to walk away from me. His voice cracked right at the end. Right at the perfect emotional note. The kind that hits directly in the heart. The kind that bypasses logic. But this time, something felt off. Too precise. Too timed. Too crafted. Like he was following a script. Suddenly, Maya's words echoed again. Men like him. A small alarm went off somewhere deep inside me. Quiet. But there. Come on, I said gently, offering my arm. Let's get you back to bed. He took my hand instead. Not my arm. My hand. Fingers interlacing. And my body froze. It was intimate. Personal. Intentional. And he knew it. His thumb brushed slowly across my knuckles, and his voice lowered. You don't have to pretend with me, Eleanor. I feel it too. My heart slammed against my ribs. Every instinct screamed. This is too close. Too intimate. Too fast. Too knowing. But vulnerability does strange things to reason. I felt my defenses tremble. I didn't pull away. Not immediately. But when I finally did, his eyes changed. Only for a fraction of a second. Something sharp. Calculating. Measuring. Like he was recalibrating his strategy. The shift was small. But unmistakable. And cold. Later, when I finally stepped away and returned to the nurse's station, I sat down hard. Hands shaking. Stomach tight. Pulse unsteady. Because I knew something now. Something I didn't want to know. Daniel didn't just see me. He chose me. Targeted me. And it worked. The next day, I did something I wasn't sure I had the strength to do. I pulled his chart. Not the medical records. The behavior file. Every hospital keeps one. We just don't talk about it. A thin folder. Unremarkable. Until I opened it. And my heart dropped. 2 previous incidents. Not physical. Emotional. Patterns of attachment to female nurses. Boundary testing. Attempts to isolate one caregiver emotionally. And in both cases, the same wording. Patient displays fixation on gaining emotional dependency from caregivers. Fixation. Not connection. Not affection. Fixation. Meaning. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't coincidental. This was intentional. Planned. Practiced. Refined. Like a pattern he had perfected. I sat there staring at the words until they blurred. My hands went numb. My breath came shallow. Because now I had to ask myself a question I had avoided from the beginning. What did he want from me? Not emotionally. Not romantically. Not sentimentally. But control. Not of my body. But of my heart. That is more powerful. More permanent. More devastating. That night, when I walked toward room 314, I wasn't the same. My steps were slower. My pulse was steady. My face was neutral. I went in, chart in hand. His eyes lit up the moment he saw me. Like always. Eleanor, he breathed, as if saying my name was relief. But this time I didn't soften. I didn't sit beside him. I didn't linger. I stood at the foot of the bed. Professional. Calm. Controlled. We need to talk about boundaries, I said softly. The warmth drained from his expression. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. Something like disappointment. Like I had just failed a test I didn't know I was taking. Boundaries, he repeated slowly. I nodded. I care about my work. I care about my patients. But I cannot be what you are trying to make me be. Our relationship has to stay professional. Silence. Long. Heavy. Airless. Then. Eleanor, he said, voice low, almost whispering. You don't have to pretend. Not with me. I know you feel it. I know you need someone. I know you're tired of being alone. My throat tightened. I am not alone, I said quietly. He smiled. Not the soft smile from before. A different one. Knowing. Certain. Of course you are. The room went cold. Because he meant it. He believed it. He was counting on it. And for the first time, I wasn't drawn in. I was afraid. Not of him. Of what I almost lost. Myself. But this is where part 2 ends. Because what happened next? The real reveal. The part where everything he told me unravels. That's where the story changes. That's where the truth finally shows itself. I didn't avoid him after that night. But I didn't allow myself to linger, either. Every time I entered room 314, I moved with careful structure. Vitals first. Chart second. Conversation minimal. No prolonged eye contact. No shared silence. I was steady. Measured. Exact. And for a while, he matched me. Too easily. He didn't argue. Didn't reach for me. Didn't push emotional openings. He simply watched. Not like before, where his gaze felt warm, curious, intent. This was different. Still. Silent. Studying. Like someone recalculating a strategy. But I didn't let myself think too deeply about what that meant. Not yet. 3 nights passed. Then 4. He said less. I said less. But I could feel something shift in the room. Like static under the air. One evening, during my break, I sat with Maya and 2 other nurses in the staff lounge. Someone had brought in leftover cupcakes. Someone else was laughing about how their cat learned to open the fridge. It was normal. Light. Human. But my mind wasn't there. I didn't realize how quiet I had gotten until Maya placed her hand over mine. "You're somewhere else." I blinked. "Just tired," I said. But she didn't buy it. "Eleanor," she said gently, "you know you don't have to carry this alone, right?" I nodded. Not because I believed her. But because I didn't know how to answer. We never learned how to ask for help. We learned how to endure. When I returned to my station, the call board lit up. Room 314. My pulse jumped. Once, sharply. The message read, "Assistance requested." No details. No urgency. Just the button. I took a slow breath, stood, and walked the familiar hallway. My shoes didn't make a sound on the floor. The lights hummed overhead. The building felt like it was holding its own breath. When I opened the door, Daniel was sitting upright in the bed, hands folded neatly in his lap. He looked calm. Too calm. "You came," he said softly. My chest tightened. "What do you need, Daniel?" He didn't answer. Instead, he tilted his head just slightly, studying my face the way someone reads a piece of music, slowly, with intention. "You've changed," he murmured. "I'm just doing my job," I replied. He smiled faintly. "No. You're protecting something." My throat tightened. "And I know what it is." That stopped me. Because part of me believed he did. He leaned forward a fraction, voice low, intimate, deliberate. "You're afraid of being loved." The words hit like a hand closing around my ribs. Not because they were true. But because they were almost true. And almost true is more dangerous than a lie. I held my ground. "What is this really about, Daniel?" He didn't hesitate. "You. Not desire. Not connection. Claim." The room suddenly felt smaller. I stepped back, not far, but enough that he noticed. His eyes flickered, not hurt, not sadness, but something older. A look I had seen before in trauma wards and forensic units. A look that said, "I only need time. And I have plenty of it." I filed incident notes after that shift. Not a formal report. Just documentation. Behavioral patterns. Attachment markers. Boundary testing. Clinical language. Emotionless on paper. But inside, my heart was shaking like a trapped animal. Because I had felt him begin to move closer again. Not physically. Psychologically. He knew how to find the cracks. He knew where the light leaked out. He knew how to wait. And waiting is the most dangerous form of patience. On the 6th night from our boundary conversation, something changed. Not drastically. Subtly. Like weather shifting before a storm. I was doing routine checks when a code was called on the 2nd floor. We all reacted instinctively. Adrenaline sharp, bodies moving before minds caught up. When the situation stabilized and I returned to my floor, I did a quick room sweep to ensure everyone was accounted for. Room 314 was empty. Not empty like patient left for a test. Empty like sheets slightly disheveled. Water cup half full. Monitor still on. Patient gone. I froze. Not panic. Just total, absolute stillness. My hand went to my radio. Before I could speak, I saw movement. Down the hall. Slow. Deliberate. Unhurried. Daniel. Walking. Not lost. Not confused. Not weak. Purposeful. Aware. He saw me. And he smiled. Not soft. Not sweet. This smile was sharp. Precise. Almost triumphant. Like he had been waiting for this moment. I walked toward him calmly. Daniel. You're not allowed to leave your room without assistance. You know that. He didn't stop walking. He didn't speed up either. He simply closed the space between us, step by step. Do you know why I like you, Eleanor? He asked quietly. My hands were steady. My breathing even. No, I said. And I don't need to. His eyes shone, not with tenderness, but with certainty. Because you're just like me. Something cold moved through me. Not fear. Recognition. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint pulse in his throat. We feel too much, he whispered. We give too much. We disappear into other people. That's why it scares you. Because you know if you let go, just a little, you wouldn't stop. My heart thudded hard once. One beat. Echoing. Because part of me knew. If I had met him at another time in my life, I might have believed him. He leaned in just slightly. I could be the one who understands you. And I realized what all of this had been. Not affection. Not connection. Not longing. A hunt. Not for my body. But for my mind. My loyalty. My emotional identity. He didn't want partnership. He wanted possession. I took a slow breath. Steady. Measured. No, I said softly. You don't understand me. You studied me. His eyes flickered. A crack. A real one. I continued. And you aren't alone because the world is cruel to you. You're alone because you choose people who are already hurting, and then you take from them. Silence. Real silence. Not held breath. Not tension. Stillness. Then. His expression changed. The softness vanished. The warmth disappeared. And what was left was the truth. Calculating. Cold. Intentional. You think you're stronger than me? He asked quietly. My voice did not shake. I think I finally see you. The hallway lights hummed overhead. The air felt heavy. He exhaled, slow, steady, almost amused. You'll be back, he whispered. People like us always return to the ones who know us. No, I said. And this time, I felt the truth of it all the way down to my bones. I'm done disappearing. I pressed the call button on my radio. Security to 3rd floor hallway, patient out of assigned room. He didn't move. Didn't fight. Didn't argue. Just looked at me. Not with anger. With something worse. Certainty. You'll miss me. Not a question. A statement. Security arrived moments later. They guided him back to the room. He didn't look back. Not once. But I did. Because part of me needed to see the door close. Needed to hear the latch click. Needed the moment to end. That was the night I learned the most dangerous manipulations are not loud. They are quiet. They feel gentle. Understanding. Necessary. They feel like being seen. But real seeing doesn't take from you. Real seeing doesn't ask for pieces. Real seeing doesn't require your loneliness as payment. Daniel never wanted my love. He wanted my emptiness. And I finally refused to hand it over. But this isn't the end. Because what I didn't know yet, what none of us knew, was that Daniel wasn't done. Part 4 is where he tries to come back. Not physically. Emotionally. And the final moment. The one that changes everything forever. Happens outside the hospital. I know what you're thinking. Eleanor, why didn't you just run? Why didn't you walk away right then? I thought the same thing. But when you spend your career watching people break, when you learn how to read those tiny fractures inside someone's voice, you start needing answers. And I needed to know what he really wanted from me. Not the surface smiles. Not the small talk. Not the apology that suddenly seemed too easy. I wanted the truth. The following evening, the parking lot was quiet again. That familiar orange streetlight hummed gently, painting everything in that same dim, cinematic warmth. Except this time. I wasn't nervous. I was prepared. I kept my keys between my fingers, sharp enough to defend myself if needed. I positioned myself near the entrance camera. And when Jason walked toward me, I didn't look away. He stopped a few steps from me. No smile. No flattering lines. Just silence. I broke it. So tell me, I said quietly. What were you really trying to do that night? He breathed out through his nose, slowly, like someone standing on the edge of a confession they didn't want to give. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, he said. I shook my head. That's not the question. His eyes flickered, caught. There it was again. That hesitation. That calculation. The space where the truth slips out, if you wait long enough. And then he said it. I thought you were lonely. Lonely. That word hit differently. Not because it was wrong. But because it was too accurate. Nurses are surrounded by people every second, and yet, somehow, constantly alone. We carry everyone else's fear, grief, pain. And we don't get to unload it anywhere. And he knew that. He counted on that. You saw an opening, I said. You wanted something from me because you thought I was worn down. He didn't deny it. Not once. He just looked past me, like the truth was easier to say if he didn't have to watch it land. You were kind to me, he murmured. You listened. That doesn't mean access, I replied. Compassion is not consent. There it was. The line he had hoped I wouldn't draw. He swallowed, jaw tightening. His voice dropped lower. Maybe I thought you needed me, he said. Now I saw the full picture. This was never about romance. Never about connection. Never about two people finding comfort in shared hurt. It was about control. Control dressed up as concern. Manipulation disguised as care. Intimacy framed as rescue. And that realization was strangely quiet. Like the air before a storm breaks. I turned away to unlock my car door, and for a second, I saw his reflection in the window. Not angry. Just exposed. Like a mask had slipped. I don't hate you, I said softly. But I see you. He didn't follow me. He didn't speak again. He just stood there under that flickering streetlight. Small, for the first time. And I drove home. But the story didn't end there. Because trauma never ends in the moment. It lives afterward. In the questions. The self-blame. The rewinding. I replayed every conversation. Every text. Every shift. Every late-night laugh in the break room. Trying to figure out when the line crossed. Trying to figure out if I could have stopped it sooner. Trying to figure out why I didn't see it. But here's the truth I learned. People who take advantage don't walk in looking dangerous. They walk in looking safe. Gentle. Familiar. They show up where they know your walls are weakest. And if anyone watching this needs to hear it, your empathy is not a flaw. It is a gift. Just not one meant for those who try to take. Weeks later, I saw Jason again. He was standing outside the same hospital doors. Not waiting for me this time. But smoking alone. Not confident. Not charming. Just tired. He glanced at me. No smile. No smirk. No attempt to approach. Just a nod. A quiet acknowledgement that I now understood everything. And maybe he understood something too. That I wasn't the one who was lonely. He was. I tell this story because I know some of you have lived this. Someone saw your exhaustion and mistook it for invitation. Someone saw your kindness and assumed they could claim it. Someone mistook your silence for permission. And I need you to hear this. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your heart, your body, your peace. Being a caretaker does not make you available. It makes you strong. It makes you valuable. It makes you someone people want to be close to. Sometimes for the wrong reasons. But we learn. We grow. We heal. And we rise. If you've ever felt someone try to take advantage of your kindness. If you've ever felt your boundaries tested when you were tired. If you've ever had to reclaim your voice after someone tried to take it. You are not alone. Tell your story in the comments. Even one sentence. Even anonymously. You never know who your voice might save. And if you want more stories from the heart of the hospital hallways, where compassion and darkness walk side by side, subscribe to The Silent Caretaker, where we don't whisper what should be spoken,